But usually that day, if like it's been 2 or 3 days, we'll mention it early on in the day to one another. Hey, how are you feeling? Would you like to connect tonight?
Squishy butt. Squishy butt.
We were gonna do this video without Hudson, but he decided to only nap for 30 minutes rather than an hour and a half, which is his usual.
Cause he said, it's my life, I can do what I want. It's my life. Not really. When you're 18 and you file taxes under single status, then you can do whatever you want. But until then, you must nap.
Welcome to another video. It's been a while since we've sat down and chatted, but
It's also been a while since we've both gotten in front of a camera and worn black.
yeah,
We're both wearing black.
we didn't do this intentionally, but here we are.
Today we're going to chat. We're gonna chat.
About intimacy, sex, all of those things.
Golly.
What?
Calm down, woman. There are young people watching.
If they clicked on this video, they know what we're going to be talking about.
Oh, Lord. I guess I didn't know what we were talking about.
I feel like we stopped sharing as much like relational health stuff because we got so, oh my gosh, this whole pacifier's in the mouth.
Oh, no.
He's been doing that lately.
He's like, why'd you do that?
So before we get into the video, it is Nick and I's anniversary, so we're gonna cook some steaks tonight, and that's why I'm so excited. We're partnering with ButcherBox. I've heard about them forever, and I'm like stoked to just share this with you guys because personally, the chef in our house is Nick. He loves cooking a good steak, loves cooking a good meal. We love meat in our house. Almost every single dinner is surrounded by a steak or chicken, ground beef, whatever it is. We just love our meat in this house, and we are unapologetic about that. I know every family is different, but I just love that ButcherBox ships you the best quality meats from farmers and fishermen. We chose our box based off of how much we love steak. We customized our whole entire box. There's 5 different options. One of them is customizable. The other are curated from chicken and ground beef, pork. There's so many different options, but that's why we chose the box that we did. We personally love steak. So for us, ButcherBox makes sense because of the price. We've done comparison with steaks and all of the different meat sets available at the grocery store versus what we get in our box for the customizable box. So we've price compared, and it is more affordable to do ButcherBox. Click the link on the screen to get ground beef for life, free ground beef for life. Yes, new members will get free ground beef for life, and you can just click the screen and it'll take you there. Make sure to enter your email address so that you can get the offer, and more info if you're curious will be linked in the description as well. There are some areas in our relationship that we feel over the past 3 years, we've grown a lot, I think, over the past 3 years, and we hope we could communicate some of those things.
Move? Do it again. Oh, what do you call that?
Thank you. Hopeful jig.
Moving on.
So there's a few areas that we've improved in. My lack of dance skills is not one of those on here. Then we're also gonna talk about like some barriers or walls that we kind of put up that can cause lack of closeness or lack of intimacy. And this is what we've noticed with us, at least.
So one of the big areas that we feel like we've grown in a lot is in emotional maturity. A few months ago especially, was going through a really tough bout with anxiety. Just like all these feelings of nervousness and lack of assurance and just waiting on some phone call or text that luckily never came. Maturity in the sense that we're recognizing how we're feeling when we're feeling it, and we can actually voice that and work through it rather than let it fester because we don't want to process how we're feeling, and then it just, blows up into a giant problem. So I think emotional maturity is one of the big areas that we've grown in.
Yeah, and of course that looks different for each of us because we've talked about this before. I feel like in emotional maturity, from the guys that have been in my life, I've noticed that it takes a little bit longer for the guys that I've observed to get a little bit more emotional maturity than it does for women. Maybe you've been a little bit emotionally immature in the past.
A little.
I definitely remember.
A little.
Whenever we first met.
I was dumb. I was a dummy.
That is one area. And then passivity on my side, I was a very passive person.
You better tell him.
I remember, and I hope you guys can understand that we're very sarcastic people with each other.
Yes.
For me, my passivity early on in our relationship,
I thought you were going to say early in August.
Early in our relationship was really extreme. I think I saw a lot of women in my life, like growing up, communicate that as a normal way of communicating. Like whenever you're annoyed or frustrated, you kind of just like slightly hint that you're annoyed or frustrated by just digging at the person. I think I've gotten better in that area of just like being clear and communication.
A lot better.
But I can always improve. Some days I don't feel like being very clear, but I realize Nick especially appreciates clear communication. I would say we'd also make decisions together more effectively. We used to just kind of say, well, what do you think? What do you think? And we would go back and forth.
Because we didn't want to tick each other off.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what would end up ticking us off.
By not making the decision together. Yeah. So that looks like us just being more involved in decisions with finances and decisions with like our future, where we're gonna move after we're done renting this house, or what we're gonna do that week. We kind of like plan ahead a little bit more for things and let each other in on our schedules that are a little bit more individual, and then the things that we're doing together, especially since we're at home a lot together, we have to be very clear. And we have one car, so we have to be very specific in that area.
And
the last one.
Hold a pause for dramatic effect. The last thing that we want to discuss as far as positivity goes, areas we've gotten better at, areas that we would say are improving.
Yes.
In an effective nature.
Okay, get on with it.
Which is why we have a child. Is physical intimacy. Is that what they call sex now?
That is what usually Christians call sex.
I don't want to say that word.
So as life gets busier, as things get more complex, schedules, I might be out for a couple days, Chelsea might be out for a couple days, just traveling with the different stuff that we do. Sometimes if you don't prioritize this part of your marriage specifically, then it can suffer. It can be the one that takes the suffering end of the stick. And so a lot of what we do now is, it sounds kind of silly and sort of like grandma and grandpa-ish.
No.
But we have expectations of days or of times that we'll set aside to just spend that time together.
Usually it's like a window of time. Sometimes it's not like we're blocking it out on our calendar on the fridge, but...
Because we have people that come over.
And they're like, oh, so that's your day. Today's the day. But
right after I leave.
So for us, I mean, I know this is different for everybody, but for us, like 2-3 days, we're like, okay, all right.
How you doing?
How you doing? And that's just kind of more of our rhythm. But usually that day, if like it's been 2 or 3 days, we'll mention it early on in the day to one another. Hey, how are you feeling? Would you like to connect tonight? You want to connect with me?
Send me a Skype link. You want to connect?
Send me a Zoom link.
It's Zoom, now it's Zoom.
That sets the expectation of either yes or no, and sometimes something happens that day, you know, that we got like bad news or something, you know, just kind of threw off our day, and it may not happen, but most times, since the expectation is there, we're both expecting it to happen, so we make it happen.
Yeah.
And we just have realized that in dating, we were very tempted to have sex with one another and everything else under the sun. But in marriage, it's almost the opposite. There's like so many things that try to get in the way of your closeness and of you prioritizing that.
Well, it's like the old saying, Satan will do everything before you're married to try and get you in bed, and then he'll try and do everything he can to keep you out of bed after you're married.
Yeah. So keeping that in mind, sometimes we just ultimately have not really felt like connecting in that way, but we never, after the fact, like regret it. I don't think there's ever been a time where we're like, yeah, we shouldn't have done that.
That would be troublesome.
Yeah. Anyway, that area, I think I was worried after having Hudson that it would suffer, but in so many ways it's gotten deeper because we have a deeper love for one another and a new title to us, mom and dad. Like,
Madre and padre.
that's just so unique, and we just see how one another loves a gift that God's given us, and it's just, we just love him. We always just stare at him on his
Yes.
monitor, like at night.
Little HUD. Let's transition.
Yes.
Let's take this boat and let's
Wheel it
steer this
that way.
sucker a little bit. So let's talk about some things that get in between relationships, get in between intimacy in all areas.
Closeness,
Yeah,
yeah.
just closeness in general, in all areas. So like mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, like all these different things. The first one is a lack of honesty.
Yeah, let's just be real with him for a second. There have been seasons of our relationship where I was struggling with sin and I didn't know it, where it was like ignorant sin, like sin that wasn't coming to the surface because I wasn't aware of it. And over time, it feels like, for me, at least with my sin or struggle, God reveals it all at once. Like, I asked for him to reveal it, and then he's like, all right, choo, here's all of this.
Open up the floodgates.
In that moment, I can be vulnerable and honest with Nick about it, because usually I'm verbally processing it all.
Yeah, I just don't think that men in general, like growing up or going through life, have many opportunities or many chances to ever like be honest, because majority of the time, like, no one really cares anyway. And and there's also like this cultural expectation to like be tough and don't, like, no one cares about your problems, so like don't bother anybody else with the
Like that
mess that you're going through.
Being the assumption.
Yeah, and I don't think it's healthy in any way, shape, or form. Nonetheless, that's like kind of the cultural norm. And so a lot of guys, when it does come time to actually open up and talk about what's going on, they don't feel safe, for one, because they've never experienced what a safe place looks like, because they've never even seen one. And then two, they don't feel comfortable opening up about what's really going on in their heart, because they've also never done that. And so when there's a lack of like ever even attempting to try something like that, or to be honest with someone, then it's gonna feel really weird and really odd and like, wow, this is strange. And then the other big thing is that some people get burned. Some people open up and talk about stuff, and someone will go and just air out everything, just tell everybody all their dirty laundry, and it creates a lack of trust to ever feel safe to do that again, and that, which is something that has happened to me. Yeah, that can absolutely affect someone's view on being safe and being transparent.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that has happened with our relationship, but as far as opening up, you mean?
Yeah,
like
and
other
prior
friendships
to us being married or really even knowing each other.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth in the area of honesty, and then also in the area of allowing a safe space to be there. It takes a lot of trust in God, ultimately, to be Lord over your relationship and trust that he is, like, my husband is in God's hands, and I have to trust that more than I have the desire to sometimes control him, because sometimes, at least for me, that is a struggle. Like, it's tempting to want to try to make sure that everything's going right and kind of do all these check-ins all the time, you know. Especially, we just opened up about this on our podcast, how if you've been hurt in the past, you could place that on your current relationship.
Yeah.
So this is an area that you can mention, but the next one.
Yes. Good old-fashioned nitpicking. Yeah, man, this can really get in between people. It gets under my skin, to be honest.
So what does this look like?
Yeah, it just looks like making, it's not like passivity. It can look like passivity, but it's not to the degree of passivity where it's like, man, I sure wish somebody would do these dishes. And, it's like only the two of you in the house or something. So it's not like that. But it's like small stuff. It's,
like, why didn't
it's
you?
making,
Why
it's
didn't?
just making like small little backhanded comments about someone's performance or about something they did or maybe they didn't do that annoyed you. They're never big. They're just always small, but they compound on top of each other and really can be annoying, and I've totally been guilty of nitpicking Chelsea about different stuff, just like she's been guilty of doing it to me. And yeah, it can be really, really frustrating, but it is an opportunity to, like, all this stuff is an opportunity. I think that's the value in the video here.
Yeah.
Is that, like, hey, you might be doing this stuff, and you can stop, and not only stop it, but you can actually redeem it and have a healthier relationship on the other side of it. It's not us just getting on a camera and be like, this is the stuff about our marriage that sucks, you know?
No, because we definitely, with you, we've struggled in these things, but there's always a reversal of this as well. Like, lack of honesty can truly turn into vulnerability and honesty within your relationship. Nitpicking can turn into
making small compliments.
Yeah, highlighting what you love about your partner. Like, the fact that
I really appreciated that you did the dishes. If that's the analogy we're going with, I really appreciate you doing those dishes that I didn't want to do last night after dinner. You know, whatever, like stuff like that. You know, instead of just like making useless backhanded comments, it's the only thing they do. The only thing, you might get the immediate result that you want. Like, they might come over there and wash the dishes, but the only thing you're gonna have after that is some clean dishes and somebody who is harboring resentment towards you.
Or frustration.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it looks like.
That's all you're gonna have.
Yeah, and obviously we've done this so much that we've had to learn through it. So we're not these people that are just like, here are all the things, like he said, that, you know, you gotta do. But whatever you compliment or whatever you feed is going to grow in any area of your relationship. And so with nitpicking and then highlighting what you enjoy or appreciate about the other person, you're going to see results in the area that you hope for whenever you're complimenting them, way more than you ever would if you were speaking negatively. I'd say the next one is something we've talked about a lot in a lot of videos, but uncommunicated expectations. What is that quote? Uncommunicated expectations leads to premeditated resentment. So that's where it could go. For us, like, we think that there's been so much of a rhythm to us, like, living together and having a kid together and doing our daily things, whether they're individual or together, that it's so much easier now to communicate expectations. But in the beginning, it's definitely not as easy. It's like a muscle. You have to continue to work it out for it to grow. This is like probably the biggest one that people could take away, is just like letting the person know what you expect of them. Not that you're being demanding or that you have this full list of things that you expect from them, but just being open and honest about your relationship.
And then also, if they want to correct those expectations, then allow them the space to do that. Don't be like, hey, this is what's going down. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And they're like, are you smoking crack? It's like, nope, this is what we're doing. It's like, no, we're not. And it's like, you know, allow them the opportunity to speak into that and maybe make some adjustments. Because a lot of times people like to get really, really firm or aggressive when they're making expectations or forming expectations. And they want to cover their bases by being like, you know, I communicated. Like, why are you not doing it? You know, so
no, I think it's letting the other person.
No, you're being a jerk, is what you're doing.
So like letting them in on, what do you think of this? You know, this is kind of what I've seen growing up, or this is what I've kind of expected in our marriage because this is all I've known. What do you think of that? What was your experience like?
And I think with that, what I just said, I think a lot of people could assume that that's just the guy.
Yeah.
I'm talking you chickadees too. Yeah.
Chickadees.
Y'all be trying to lay down the law a little bit too hard sometimes, and allow a brother to speak into some things, and then vice versa. Don't be a jerk. Just everybody, don't be a jerk. Just be cool. Make decisions together. Make expectations together. Yeah.
Be cool. Last two, we can just go through them really quick.
Last two. Ooh, I mean, I think honestly this one is probably the one that causes all the other ones.
Oh, really?
So we probably should start with that one.
Yeah.
Self-centeredness. Our offspring.
Let me go get our offspring.
So self-centeredness is something. It's a skill. Chelsea has mastered it. Sorry. I'll wait for her to get back.
Waldo!
Oh no. Oh no.
Say hello, everyone.
Our offspring has returned. Dude, we look like vampires. So this one is self-centeredness. Selfishness, self-centeredness, whatever you want to call it, is probably one of the biggest reasons for strife and for friction in relationships. Because when you're so focused on just getting what you want, getting your way,
and letting the relationship just serve you all the time.
yeah, then that is a recipe for disaster. And it looks like so many different things. It just always think of like, am I doing this because I want this, or is this beneficial to the entirety of our family or our marriage or relationship or dating life or like whatever? Or is this just so that I can feel good, or I can get my way, or I can have what I want, or I can go buy what I want? Anytime it's about me or you, or like it's always about self, it's always about me looking out for my best interest, then that is like, you are not might be, you are for sure headed for destruction. I'm telling you, like it is like cancer to a relationship.
But I think it's great that people get aware that maybe they've had a tendency to be a little bit more self-centered, because sometimes people don't really have that example in the marriages they've seen or in the relationships that they've seen. Maybe they've seen a lot of self-centeredness and thinking that that is like
the way to do it.
The way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being inclusive of decisions and just serving one another. Like having a serving heart for one another.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
So this is the last little one. I've noticed in our marriage, when we go a while without just really sharing how we appreciate one another, what we see growing in each other and our character, we just kind of go on with our day, and we don't like appreciate the things that one another does, but we also just kind of are more like roommates than...
Yeah. Well, you overlook those things that someone is doing or the way that they're growing, and it just kind of becomes second nature. And it's not something that you find beautiful like maybe you once did.
Yeah.
And showing appreciation, voicing your appreciation, affirming them, it's just a way to keep that at the forefront and on top of mind too. Because I think it's also one of those things that like helps you stay in love with someone is remembering and calling to mind and noticing the things that you appreciate and adore and love about someone.
So we hope some of these are helpful. If you have any like questions or things that you find helpful in your marriage or relationship, please leave them down below for other people to share theirs. And we also love talking about marriage and relationships on our Patreon, so feel free to join us there. We have a Discord where we talk pretty much daily in there, and we pray for one another, and we would love to have you guys over there.
Yes.
You letting them know what's up? Yeah.
But again, thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Yes. I'll probably see them in the next video. Right, Hudson? Say bye-bye.
Say bye-bye.
My big belly.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So the reason we get our meats through the system. Hudson!
Oh my gosh, that was the best timing ever.